This is going to be my top 10 designers of all time that shaped my personal taste and how it is today. Howdy, y'all. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you guys are safe and I hope you guys are healthy. My name is Josh and I absolutely love clothing and personal style. So if you're into that type of content, feel free to subscribe to me here on YouTube as well as follow me on Instagram at where's_Galdo. So, it is finally cold enough, breaking out the Snuggie and throwing it over me like some fancy avant-garde piece, but I'm just trying to be warm. Today's video is going to be primarily about talking about, jeez. So my original idea was to come up with a top 10 list of best designers of all time, but I just feel like that's so subjective, and the only thing that I could really be credible in talking about as far as top 10 or some sort of list is going to be more so top 10 designers that have influenced my taste and got it to where it is today. So there are a lot of brands and designers that I'm going to be leaving out, unfortunately, but 10 is plenty, and I'm going to be talking about why I like them or my favorite all-time pieces from them. So let's get this list started. Starting off the list with a little bit of a controversial one, it's going to be Jerry Lorenzo, Fear of God, and Fog. That whole movement hit at the perfect time for me. I think I was in college, so anywhere from 18, 19, 20-ish. And prior to that whole era, I was very much a streetwear guy. I collected sneakers, wore a whole lot of Undefeated, the Hundreds, Stussy, things like that. And Jerry Lorenzo coming out with Fear of God stuff and Fog and stuff like that really bridged the gap for me to introduce me to higher end luxury designer goods. And it made me feel like there was oh yes, this stuff is very high end, but it is still suitable for someone who wears sneakers, who wears a little bit more street centric clothing. And I definitely think that that is a really big deal, because without that, I don't think I would have delved deeper into the designers and people that I'm into today. Number 9 on the list is going to be Errolson Hugh of Acronym. Acronym, to this day, is one of my favorite brands of all time, and that is primarily due to the hyperfixation on function as well as world building. If you are unfamiliar with Acronym, I highly urge you to definitely delve into the whole universe that is Acronym. They have such specific, unique, hyper function based clothing that really looks kind of like sci-fi but without being costumey, and that makes me very happy. I really hope to own Acronym in my closet one day, more so. Well, I have something that I haven't shown on the channel yet, but I want to have more Acronym clothing. But my only issue with having Acronym in my wardrobe is that it doesn't necessarily play very well with the other pieces of clothing that I own, or at least I'm not comfortable wearing them with the other pieces. It is definitely kind of specific. The Acronym look is very specific to itself, and if I had to pick a favorite Acronym anything, it would be their pants, because their pant silhouettes are really cool. They have anything from skinny pants, slim pants, to joggers, to super wide leg pants. Just the variety in their fit. The fits of their pants are really cool, but their jackets are mainly what they're known for, and the modularity of how the jackets work with the bags and stuff like that. Acronym is just so special. Next up on the list is actually going to be Ralph Lauren. Maybe a surprising one for some of you, but I think that Ralph Lauren and the whole universe of Ralph Lauren and his various sub-brands, categories, is probably one of the greatest referential designers of all time. And what I mean by that is that his references, and I know he's not the sole and primary designer, but the name and label Ralph Lauren are going to be just the best brand for referential Americana. It is so true to form when it comes to the specific looks, and they don't just adopt one look. They look at the different subcultures that exist within American history, and they really go all in on executing really great clothing in reference to those pockets of American history. And one of the best brands that exists within the Ralph Lauren universe is going to be Double RL. Double RL by far has the best quality and is definitely geared to more kind of Western workwear stuff, which is something that I really enjoy. But they do have a lot of sub brands and other labels like Polo Ralph Lauren, where they have a lot of like the more normal kind of preppy stuff. And then there's Country, which is very outdoorsy. They have Purple Label, which is a lot of like higher end, I think European made, like suiting and stuff like that. So Ralph Lauren is indefinitely on this list for sure. At number 7 is going to be Hiroki Nakamura of Visvim. Visvim is a really, really, man, I've loved Visvim for I don't know how long, but I also attribute Jerry Lorenzo, I mean, it's kind of coming full circle here, to introducing me to Visvim. Kanye West, Jerry Lorenzo, all those people used to wear like Visvim FBTs, which I actually have a pair floating around somewhere. Let me find it. All right, found them. This shoe right here was so popular back in the day. I'm really happy that I have a pair, and I mean, they're really old now, so like there is some separating in the glue, but they are quite high quality shoes, and at the time they were my highest quality shoe. So the reason why I like Visvim so much, and Hiroki Nakamura specifically, is that just like Ralph Lauren, brilliant at referencing American culture. But the difference between Ralph Lauren and Visvim is going to be that Visvim adds a little bit of like an East Asian spin on a lot of things that are American inspired. And that mixture of things kind of hits home for me. I mean, being Asian and living in America, it is like the perfect mix of things in my opinion. And I think what encompasses that concept really well is going to be the Chamdo Parka, or well, I don't know what it's actually called. Visvim has like naming conventions that I'm unaware of, but the Chamdo Parka is one of my favorite things of all time. It is just crazy expensive, and I hope to one day own it, but we will have to see. It is the perfect melding of like American military vintage wear and like in the shape of like a robe. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. Next, I think 6th on the list is going to be Martin Margiela. Martin Margiela is a very easy pick because I think Martin Margiela exists on almost every list if you're talking best designers of all time. Martin Margiela brought a certain artfulness into fashion, and seeing Martin Margiela pieces and stuff like that, I started to appreciate fashion a little bit differently once looking into Martin Margiela's kind of archive of things. And the simple fact that Martin Margiela is not very front and center, I mean, yeah, the brand is named after him. However, that like he's more of like a step back and has not since been with the Margiela brand in more recent years. But the idea that he's more like reclusive as a designer definitely piqued my interest, because how can you be someone so reclusive while still creating such beautiful pieces? It brings this air of mystery to the brand that makes me very intrigued by it. But if I were to say most like my favorite piece from Margiela, it would definitely be the belt jacket that Martin Margiela originally did, but then with Margiela and H&M's collaboration, they completely also like redid that jacket too. And absolutely gorgeous jacket, really interesting to look at. It is just by itself one of the most fascinating jackets I've ever seen, and I would love to own that too. Number 5 on the list is Yohji Yamamoto. Absolutely wonderful designer. A lot of people say that Rei Kawakubo and Yohji Yamamoto are kind of neck and neck in terms of most influential designers of all time. I identify a little bit closer with Yohji Yamamoto. Yes, Rei Kawakubo is absolutely incredible, and anything within the Comme des Garçons universe is pretty great. But Yohji Yamamoto, for me, because I identify closer with, I guess, the ethos of the brand. Everything is all kind of monochromatic, if not, I mean, very slight deviations outside of there, but there is anything from suiting to activewear and anything in between, and even within the streetwear world too. So it was really easy for me to kind of like get into Yohji, and then to branch out into Yohji itself was great too. Now I'm more so into kind of like the formal wear stuff, so Yohji is definitely what I look at because Yohji has made so many like pieces of formal wear, and silhouetting and materials are all so great. Let me actually show you my Yohji blazer. So this is not mainline, but it is wise for men right there. And what I mean is that like a blazer inherently is a very simple piece of clothing. However, like there is such subtle differences when it comes to Yohji suiting. This in particular has a completely knit sleeve. So compared to the body, which is like a typical suiting fabric, and then we have the sleeves slightly different. It is traditional, but also progressive in a way. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I love Yohji Yamamoto for that. The simplicity, but also the complication in at the same time, if that makes sense. Number 4 on the list is going to be Hedi Slimane. I don't know how to say that properly. I'm not French. Hedi Slimane. Specifically when he was at Dior, victim of the crime was the collection, the boots. That was one of my first forays into getting like a designer boot, and judging from how much I love boots now, that was kind of my gateway into one of my favorite pieces that I wear almost every single day as like an adult now. That definitely shaped my appreciation for high-end footwear and particularly boots. And I owe that specific pair of boots a whole lot of credit for me today. Hedi Slimane is a absolutely great designer. However, I do want to put the caveat in there that Hedi Slimane is only good at doing one very particular type of styles, type of look, and that's going to be kind of like the rock star look. And there's nothing wrong with being very hyper focused on a type of look. He does it absolutely perfectly. Whereas I think that if he stays in his lane, I think he makes wonderful, wonderful clothing. Number 3 is going to be Carol Christian Poell, specifically for his footwear. Carol Christian Poell is a absolutely insane, wild, and just esoteric brand that brings such a beautiful artfulness to fashion. Carol Christian Poell, I'll say CCP from now on, brings this almost madness to clothing, and I think it's really off-putting sometimes, but really, really, really cool. I have loved my Carol Christian Poell pieces, the very few that I've ever owned, and let me just pull out the boots, I guess. These boots are still to this day one of my prized possessions, and there is a version of this boot that I would basically obsess over and want in the future at some point, and that is going to be the same like silhouette of boots, so the tornado zip where the zipper goes from the back to the side, tornado boot, but there is a version that is rubber dipped, oh goodness, rubber dipped prosthetic tornado boot. I think that encompasses what I'm talking about here. But yeah, that version of the tornado boot is insane. There are pieces of like metal that are supposed to cap like either the ankle or the around the toe area. The dipped rubber sole is just looks so grisly and gritty and crazy. Carol Christian Poell is one of the designers that I look at when I look at unrelenting art in fashion. Number 2 on the list is going to be Rick Owens. This one was a really easy one for me to be so high up on the list, primarily because Rick Owens was one of the first designer brands that made me branch out into something that was a lot more avant-garde, a lot more out of the ordinary. I have to credit Rick Owens with expanding my vision of clothing, really. I remember first it was like drop crotch clothing, which was like strange to me, but nowadays I absolutely love it. Then there's like the crazy like uses of like pentagrams and imagery and just craziness. I just honestly like a vast majority of Rick Owens items, and his silhouetting can be primarily, so I mean in the past it was like very much for like skinnier individuals, but nowadays it's very kind of inclusive with a lot of very oversized clothing. And I think my favorite Rick Owens item I've ever seen, just ever, is going to be the Lego Soul Pentagram boots. The lacing system is sick. The Lego Soul also sick. It's a shame that it does not hold up very well over time, but just to look at, I mean, if I ever bought a pair of Lego Soul Pentagram boots, I think I'd just put it in a case and just stare at it. It's a display piece more than it is like a functional piece of clothing. But yeah. Number 1. I definitely think that any of these like designers on this list, like from 5 to 1, can be pretty interchangeable. But as of right now, my number 1 is Jun Takahashi of Undercover. One of the best designers that I think like has ever existed. And the reason I think so is because of his references to subculture and his nuance. It's really, really, really cool for me. And my favorite collection of Jun Takahashi's is going to be Scab. Really, really great collection that references crust punk fashion, which is not, I guess, is not often referenced in the fashion world, but it is something that looks like it takes so long to do. It looks like a very labor-intensive process to create, and the Scab denim and the Scab backpack just blows my mind. Really, really cool, absolutely gorgeous, and genuinely is one of my favorite pieces of clothing to ever exist. I know for an absolute fact that I am missing a good number of designers on this list, so let me know in the comments down below who I'm missing. Who are some of the best designers of all time? But that is going to be my list. I appreciate you guys so much. I do want to hear your feedback in the comments down below. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for hearing me yap. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.